Brother, sister, there's a moment at the casket when the room goes quiet, and someone always feels the need to fill that silence with words. Here's a hard truth. Not every word spoken at an open casket is holy just because it was spoken there. Some words comfort, some words wound, without the speaker ever meaning to wound at all. And some words reveal, in a single sentence, exactly what the speaker actually believes about death, about grief, about God, whether they intended to reveal it or not. Learning to notice the difference, before you speak rather than after, is itself a quiet act of discipleship. Today we're not talking about actions. We're talking specifically about words. The phrases that slip out at the casket rail without a second thought. Phrases that feel natural, even kind, but that quietly do harm the moment they leave your mouth. This isn't about judging anyone who's ever said one of these things, since almost everyone has, at some casket, at some point in their life. It's about learning to hold your tongue in the one room where words carry more weight than almost anywhere else. Stay with me. You may recognize a few of these from your own mouth. Think back to the last open casket you stood in front of. What did you actually say in those first few seconds when the silence started to feel too heavy to carry? Most of us don't plan our words in that moment. They simply arrive, shaped by nerves, by habit, by whatever we've heard other people say at other caskets over the years. That's exactly why this list matters. These phrases have been passed down so casually, for so long, that most of us have never once stopped to ask whether they're actually good words to say. The first category is the comment about how the body looks. They don't even look like themselves. That's not a good color on them. They did a terrible job. We say these things almost reflexively, filling the silence with an assessment nobody asked for. But think about what that sentence actually communicates in a room built around honoring a life, not critiquing a final appearance. The family standing near you did not choose the lighting, the makeup, or the outcome. What they need in that moment is your presence, not your review. If a comment about appearance is the first thing rising to your lips, let it stay unsaid. Consider too how these comments echo long after they're spoken. A grieving spouse or parent doesn't just hear a stray opinion about lighting or makeup. They hear, whether you meant it this way or not, an implied criticism of the very last decisions they made on behalf of someone they loved. Words about appearance rarely land as small talk. They land as judgment on a choice that can never be undone, spoken to a person who is in no position to defend it. The second category is subtler and far more common, the comfort cliché that quietly denies grief or misrepresents God. Everything happens for a reason. God needed another angel. It was just their time. These phrases are often spoken with real love behind them, a genuine desire to soften the pain. But listen to what they actually say when you slow down and examine them. They flatten a complicated, sacred mystery into a tidy phrase that explains away the family's grief, instead of sitting inside it with them. Scripture never promises us a tidy explanation for every loss. It promises us a God who is present in the loss. There's a real difference between offering comfort and offering an explanation nobody asked for and nobody can actually verify. When in doubt, say less. I'm so sorry, and I love them too, have carried more grieving hearts through more caskets than any clever explanation ever has. Here's a simple way to check yourself before you speak. Ask whether the phrase forming in your mind is meant to comfort the grieving person or meant to comfort you, to make the moment feel resolved and explainable, so that you can move past your own discomfort more quickly. Grief rarely wants a solution offered to it in the first 60 seconds. It wants a witness. Let your words witness the loss rather than resolve it. The third category is words spoken directly to the body, as though it can still hear and act on your behalf. Watch over the kids for me. Tell God I said hi. Make sure everything works out. We touched on this before in another warning, but it deserves its own moment here, specifically as spoken words, because there's something different about actually saying it out loud versus simply thinking it. Speech has weight. When you speak a request directly to the deceased, you are functionally praying to someone other than God, however affectionately it's meant. The body in that casket cannot carry a message, intercede on your behalf, or watch over anyone. Every one of those spoken requests deserves to be redirected, out loud if it helps, toward the God who is actually listening. This doesn't mean you can never speak affectionately toward the person one final time. A simple, honest, I love you, I'll miss you, is different in kind from a request that assumes the deceased has taken on some ongoing spiritual role in your life. The test is simple. Are you expressing love, or are you assigning a task? One honors the person you lost, the other quietly, unintentionally, treats them as something closer to a saint or a spirit than a soul now fully in God's hands. The fourth category is the careless joke or the deflecting comment meant to cut the tension in the room. Well, at least the flowers are nice. I bet they'd have hated this song. Humor isn't inherently wrong at a funeral. There is a long and healthy tradition of loving, gentle laughter shared over a life well lived. But there's a difference between warm, affectionate humor that honors the person and a nervous joke thrown out simply because the silence felt unbearable. If your joke is really about relieving your own discomfort rather than honoring the person in the casket, that's worth noticing before the words leave your mouth. Silence, held with someone rather than escaped from, is often the more faithful response. There's a good version of this instinct too, worth naming clearly, a warm shared memory that makes the family laugh through their tears, told with love and timed with sensitivity to the room. That kind of laughter honors a life well lived and belongs at a casket as much as any tear does. The difference lies entirely in the motive. One kind of laughter draws the room closer to the person being remembered. The other kind simply relieves the speaker's own nervous tension and drifts the room's attention away from where it belongs. The fifth category is the comparative grief statement, the one that quietly minimizes what the family in front of you is actually carrying. I know exactly how you feel. At least they lived a long life. At least it was quick. Each of these phrases is usually well-intentioned, an attempt to relate or to soften the blow. But notice what they actually do. They redirect attention toward your own experience, or they quietly instruct the grieving person on how much grief they're allowed to feel. No one, however similar their loss, knows exactly how another person feels. And no, at least, has ever made a loss weigh less to the person actually carrying it. A simple "I'm here" says more and claims less than any comparison ever could. Even when your own loss genuinely was similar, resist the urge to make the moment a comparison of experiences. Grief is not a competition, and it is not a shared category to be measured against. Each loss carries its own particular weight, shaped by a particular relationship that no one else on earth had in quite the same way. Honor that specificity instead of folding it into your own story. The sixth category is the one nobody wants to name out loud, bringing up unresolved business, old grudges, or unfinished conversations right there at the casket. I never got the chance to tell them what I really thought. We still needed to talk about the will. I wish I'd said something before this happened. These words might be true. They might even need to be said eventually, to the right person at the right time. But spoken loudly enough for the grieving family to overhear, in the one room built entirely around honoring a life, they become less about honest reflection and more about making your own unfinished business the center of someone else's moment of mourning. Save it. Write it down if you need to. But that casket rail is not the place to finally say what you should have said years ago. If unfinished business is genuinely weighing on you, bring it to God in prayer first, and to a trusted friend or counselor second. Let the casket rail remain what it was always meant to be, a place of honoring, not a place of processing your own unresolved history with the person who can no longer respond. So what does it actually sound like to speak well at an open casket? It sounds like less, not more. It sounds like "I'm so sorry" instead of a critique of appearance. It sounds like sitting in the mystery instead of explaining it away with a tidy phrase. It sounds like every word directed toward God rather than toward a body that cannot hear it. It sounds like warmth without a nervous joke covering real discomfort. It sounds like "I'm here" instead of a comparison that was never yours to make. And it sounds like silence, holding your unfinished business for another day, another room, another person entirely. Words spoken at a casket carry weight far beyond the moment they're spoken in. The family standing there will remember, for years, exactly what was said to them in that room. Not the words that were perfectly composed, but the words that were genuinely kind, or the words that quietly wounded without ever meaning to. Long after the flowers have faded and the details of that day have blurred together, the words spoken over that casket often remain. So the next time you find yourself standing at that rail, searching for something to say, remember that silence held with love has never once made anyone feel unloved. But the wrong words, however well-intentioned, are remembered far longer than we ever expect them to be. If you're not sure what to say when your own moment comes, prepare something small and honest ahead of time, rather than trusting the pressure of the room to produce the right words on the spot. A simple phrase, "I'm so sorry for your loss. I love them too. I'm here for you," will almost always serve better than whatever clever or comforting sounding thing occurs to you under the weight of that silence. There is no failure in simplicity at a casket. The failure comes from reaching for more than the moment actually calls for. And if you do find yourself slipping into one of these 6 patterns, don't let shame keep you from correcting course. You can simply stop mid-sentence, sit with the silence a moment longer, and choose different words. The family in front of you will remember your presence far more than they'll remember one imperfect sentence, as long as what follows is genuine care, rather than more of the same. If this stirred something in you, brother, sister, don't scroll past it. Subscribe to Biblical Warning now, and let's keep examining these hidden places together, one warning at a time.